Can I interest you in a little showdown in College Station this weekend? Number 9, Texas A&M playing their SEC opener against Auburn, where the Aggies have won 12 straight games against AP unranked opponents, with 11 of the 12 wins coming by 10 or more points. On the other side, Auburn enters on a 14-game road losing streak against AP top 10 teams, with their last win being against number 4 Ole Miss on the road back in 2014. So we mentioned that number 12, and you look at A&M's past 12 home games versus unranked opponents, the point differential, 27 big ones as they sit at that undefeated 12-0 mark and winning 11 of the last 12 by 10 or more points. So if history repeats itself, we might not have a close one in College Station. But we might. So let's get a deeper diver into this conversation and bring in Karels, who covers Texas A&M for 24/7 Sports, and Jason Caldwell, who covers Auburn also for 24/7. And gentlemen, let's start here, and I'll go to you first, Jason, because the Tigers are in the midst of a brutal stretch when you look at their schedule. And how many times have we heard that when it comes to these SEC teams? Ranked Oklahoma, who they faced last week. They get ranked A&M on Saturday, and then 2 more ranked opponents for good measure, all in this gauntlet. What's the best outcome for them here during this stretch?
Yeah, Zach, it started really too with a trip to Baylor right out of the gate. So you look and it's kind of you look at the schedule and it's kind of broken up in different ways. You know, you look at it, a first 5-game stretch, you have 3 road games, and it feels like Auburn's in the old Big 12 for a little bit here, because you had Baylor, you had Oklahoma, now you got Texas A&M. So it's been the West road trip for the Tigers. So you just kind of you get a bye week next week. So it's almost a reset button after this first 5-game stretch, in my mind anyway. Obviously you got Georgia, Missouri coming up and difficult games, but you know, how do you handle this first 5 games? And so Auburn's 3-1. Had a chance to win last week in Oklahoma. Can you give yourself a chance to win Saturday in College Station? Because you could pull off the upset and be 4-1 after this 5-game stretch with a bye week. You'd have to feel pretty darn good about the way this season has started.
Carter, the other side.
Yeah. For Texas A&M, I mean, it's a little bit different. This is probably the easier part of the schedule. It's hard to say easy when you're in the SEC and you got the games you got, but 3 straight home games, and you look at that, 5 of your first 6 games are at home. That's a great place to be in first half of your schedule, but you'll notice 4 of the last 6 are on the road, including 3 straight. It's broken up by a bye week there between LSU and Missouri, but A&M, you look at this schedule, they could start off 7-0. It is not inconceivable now, coming off that win at Notre Dame. You could be 7-0 going into a showdown at LSU. And if you look at the next 4 games, this game coming up may very well be the hardest game during that stretch. So you win this game, you very well could be in that position at 7-0. And so this is definitely a big one for the Aggies.
Yeah, Carter, as you know, they get to face my hapless Gators a little bit later on the schedule. That should be an easy win for them, and I'll just go out and say that and be honest about it. Let's talk about a way that maybe Auburn can win this game, and you look squarely there at the QB play. 255 consecutive pass attempts without an interception for Jackson Arnold. Jason, how much of a luxury is it for the Tigers to have a guy like that?
Yeah, I think there's 2 sides of that coin. Protecting the football after the way last season went for Auburn was definitely a priority, because last season turnovers were a killer for them, and especially in 3 losses. And so protecting the football is really big. I thought Saturday against Oklahoma probably held it a little too long. And so I think there's a fine line between protecting the football and maybe giving your guys a chance to make some plays down the field in one-on-one situations. So I think, you know, you don't want to throw a bunch of interceptions, but I think you got to have a little bit more of a gunslinger mentality too. So I won't be surprised if you see Jackson Arnold maybe throw a couple more balls to give his guys a chance to make plays. But yeah, no question that you don't want to go out there football, but you may see a few more of those shots down the field, maybe in some one-on-one situations this weekend.
Yeah, and for the Aggie defense going up with this guy, I mean, you watched this game last week against Oklahoma, 9 sacks given up by Auburn's offensive line. How much of that was the O-line? How much of that was Arnold holding on to the ball too long? You could maybe blame it on both, but for A&M, they'll take a sack any way they want. It's a defense that really hasn't found their identity quite yet. They gave up 40 points at Notre Dame. They gave up 20 plus in their first 2 games against non-power 4 opponents. And so can this be a game where they finally find their identity, where they can finally, prove themselves against a good offense with some good weapons? And, this very well could be an A&M team that just outscores teams, that they win shootout kind of games. And I think this game may be no different. But can they make those extra couple plays? Certainly with Jackson Arnold, you have to account for his legs. You also have to account for the running game that Auburn's been able to establish here early on. And then those 2 great receivers they've got in Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton, those guys are problems to deal with. And so I think this A&M defense is going to be tested. I think it starts with pressure and getting to the quarterback. We've seen Cassius Howell be kind of that guy for A&M. No surprise this season. He is one to watch, I would say, for this A&M defense, of someone that if A&M can break through, if they can get to the quarterback and make things challenging for Jackson Arnold, I would believe it has to be Cassius Howell leading that charge.
So we can go from the A&M defense over to their offense and switch and look at the other QB in this matchup, and that's Marcel Reed. Carter, how crucial is the deep ball for Reed and getting this A&M offense going?
Big time. For Marcel Reed so far, he's done a great job, shown a lot of growth as far as making the right decisions, distributing the football to his guys, making the right reads, and on short and intermediate routes, being pretty accurate. But where he needs growth is that deep ball. He had 360 yards through the air against Notre Dame. It really felt like he could have had like 550. He had an overthrow on what could have probably been a 97-yard touchdown to Casey Concepcion. He had another overthrow on a big pass down the field at Amari Niblack. And there were a couple other deep balls that were a little bit off the mark in that game. And it's been a theme for him since he kind of came into the fold last year. And look, he's still young and still developing some chemistry with some newer receivers. But I think that if you're looking at one thing to nitpick, it would be that. But even then, this offense is so explosive. They already have more completions of 20-plus yards than they did all of last season, which really shows you the growth that they have had in 2 fewer games of comparison. And so all Marcel really has to do is just get it to his guys in space, make the right decisions. He doesn't need to be a superhero for this offense to be great. But, hey, if he can connect on 1 or 2 of those deep throws that he hasn't connected, I mean, you're talking about a guy who could take a real leap this year. And it's still early. I still think he can make that leap. He's just got to execute and make those throws.
Completing 59% of his passes, so probably would like to see that go up a little bit more. Jason, you look over at Marcel Reed and where are the issues and spots where you think that Auburn could try to take advantage of him defensively?
Yeah, it may be tough to say take advantage of a guy like that because he's so athletic. That's the first thing. I remember he came to Auburn quarterback camp when he was in high school, of course, from Tennessee. And so I remember watching him then, and you could see the athleticism. It was always going to be, would the passing game catch up? And then you look at it now, and he's a much better passer than people would have even realized this early in his career. One of the things is you have to take away the big explosive plays. And as Carter mentioned, they've got, I think, 14 passing plays of over 20 yards in 3 games. So for Auburn, can you limit those things? And look out, Concepcion is a guy that's a big-time playmaker. Watch him, at NC State the last couple of years, and you could see that. The other guy, Mario Craver, in-state kid that I probably watched play 8 to 10 times in high school over his years at Clay Chalkville High School, which is right outside of Birmingham. So this is a guy that Auburn's familiar with. Got some guys that probably played against him in high school a little bit. So this is going to be a big game for Mario Craver. So he's going to want to do some damage this weekend. So can you limit the big plays? And honestly, to me, maybe the biggest storyline of this for Auburn's defense is, can you limit what Reed does with his legs in extending plays, getting outside the pocket? That's where quarterbacks like this can be so dangerous, because it makes you have to cover guys so much longer. And if you have to cover these guys a lot longer, they're going to get open. So can Auburn get to Marcel Reed and make him get rid of the football or get outside the pocket and limit that time in the pocket is going to be a big deal.
So we broke down the offenses, we broke down the schedules to get to this point of the year, but now it's time for Saturday, 3:30. I'll defer to the home team first and ask you this, Carter, who wins on Saturday?
I've got A&M right now at 31-27. We'll see if my score prediction changes, but that's my score prediction for now. I just think that what A&M's been able to do offensively this season, it's going to be hard to stop no matter what defense comes to town. And then I think with Auburn, they have struggled in areas that don't translate well on the road. You know, pass protection, penalties, self-inflicted wounds. Those are things that don't translate well on the road. And most importantly, just they have given up a lot of plays as a secondary. So I think A&M will be able to take advantage of that. I still think Auburn will have a lot of success offensively. It very well could be a shootout, but I've got A&M in a close one.
Yeah, I've got A&M winning too. It's just one of those things. I think Auburn, and I know Auburn's a better football team than they have been the last couple of years. They showed that Saturday. Even with all the mistakes that they made, they had a chance to win on the road against what I think is a pretty good Oklahoma team. And so I think they'll be in the game. Can you make those plays to win a game on the road in a key situation like this? And it's one of those things where you almost have to see it. And so I think I picked Texas A&M 24-17, and Carter's right. It could be a shootout, but it's so many times when you think of that's going to happen, it ends up being the opposite. So I think this is going to be a little bit more defensive game than maybe we expect. And so, but yeah, I think Auburn can win this game, but it's almost one of them where I got to go see them do it and prove it in this situation.
Total set at 52.5 for this game, so if you're expecting points galore, you'll need to go over that. Carter Karels and Jason Caldwell, we get ready for Saturday, 3:30 between Texas A&M and Auburn. Appreciate it, fellas. And we get ready for the rest of the slate of the games on Saturday, airing over on CBS Sports Network. We have a nice little triple for you, triple dipper. Bowling Green in Ohio at noon, then Rice Navy at 3:30. If you watch that game, you watch HQ, you'll see a face you see all the time on the Morning Buzz. That's Brandon Baylor. He'll be on the sidelines. Finish off in Colorado State, taking on Washington State.